Matthew 20, 1 through 16, starting with verses 1 and 2. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. When he had agreed upon with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. Regardless, this is how they did things in the first century. They went out and they hired extra workers because they needed to reap the harvest. Now, grapes are particularly important because you had to harvest grapes either like if you did it a day too soon or a day late, it would just spoil the grapes, okay? So you needed to do it at the right day. So if the landowner saw that the grapes were ripe with harvest, they had to get them all in or they were going to lose the profit. So this is very typical behavior that a landowner will go out and hire more workers. And he goes out and he hires some at the beginning of the day. The second thing I want you to note is a denarius. What is a denarius? It's a round silver Roman coin, about the size of your quarter. And it's very important because it can feed a family for a day. Okay, it's about a day's wage. It's a denarius for your future Bible study. I mean, it's not very, I don't know, it's a value today or how it would match up to the dollar, probably around a nickel today. But still, it would feed a Jewish family. It would feed a family in the first century. 98% of the population it would feed for a day. So it was very important that if you worked for a day, that you got a day's wage, because that's what's fair, right? So Jesus tells this story, starts off this story by telling the people he's surrounding himself with, most likely his disciples and other people, other Jewish people as well, and they've seen this image before, verses 3 and 4. And he went out about the third hour, about 9 a.m., and he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And he said to those, you also go into my vineyard, and whatever is right I will give you. And so they went. Oftentimes people stood idle in the marketplaces because that's what they did for work. They were hired hands. So imagine this. If you broke your leg, or if you didn't have a profession, or if you got fired from your job, most likely what would happen is you go to the market. And if you got lucky, you were hired on for a day, right? Have you ever seen, okay, this is how first century society always operated, okay? You got up, you went to work, you harvested your crop, you had your special profession like Jesus had for carpentry, or Jesus' dad had for carpentry. You had your specialty, or you stood in the marketplace and you were waiting to be hired, okay? It's very low status, okay? It's almost so much so that you're almost equal to a woman in the first century society, okay? Very low. It's very, very low. Almost slave status to have to go and not be sure about whether or not you can bring in money for your family that you're providing for, okay? It's a very unsettling position that you have to be in. But regardless, if you didn't get any money, your family didn't eat. So these workers are standing around the marketplace, and some get chosen at 6 a.m., and then some get chosen at 9 a.m. Can you imagine now the other guys? They're like, luckies. How can they be so fortunate? Injustice in this world. I have a family to feed. Can you imagine that? Maybe you have a similar work situation where you don't know if you're going to have a job in 2 months or a job in a week. You ever go through a period of time like that? I go through like that every week. Come over here, I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to have a job next week. Just kidding. No, you won't fire me just yet. You have to find another place first. So regardless, these people are standing around their idle position in the marketplaces just waiting to be hired. And he's hiring at 9 a.m. because he needs more workers. Verses 5 through 7. And he went out about the 6th hour, about noon. And again at the 9th hour, about 3 p.m. And he did the same thing. And about the 11th hour, 5 p.m., he went out and found others still standing around. And he said to them, why are you standing here idle all day long? And they said to him, because no one has hired us. And he said, you too go into my vineyard and work. The owner of the field is acting in urgency, okay? He's going out at the 9th hour, 9 a.m., 12 a.m., 3 p.m., 5 p.m. He's got to get everybody he can on this field to reap this harvest, okay? Because it's very important to him. He's got to get all his money's worth for this harvest. Something said about the harvest as well. But regardless, he goes out at 5 p.m. Now, why is this significant? Mainly just because the workday ended at 6 p.m. Okay, that was quitting time. Much like our workday ends at 5. Their workday, okay, if you work third shift or something like that. But their workday ended at 6 p.m. And you didn't work past 6 p.m. because that was past sunset. And it was very important that you didn't work past sunset, mainly just because there's a Jewish law that says something like this. Deuteronomy 24:14 was that you had to pay your workers if you hired them on. You had to pay your workers before the sun would set. Now, this may not seem very significant to you because we get paid as a bi-weekly system or a weekly system, right? Or we get tips if we're waitresses or so on and so forth. But in first century Jewish society, in first century society, you were paid at the end of the day. Why? Because you had to provide for your family. Okay, if you didn't come home with money, you had to watch your family not eat. So Yahweh specifically has his law designed around helping out the poor and making sure that the poor get what they need, especially from the landowner. Not exploiting the worker, but giving the worker what is fair. Verses 8 through 9. When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last group to the first." When those hired about the 11th hour came, each one received a denarius. Stop traffic. What did that just say? That said that, I can't believe my eyes. Let's read that again. Verse 9. When those hired about the 11th hour, 5 p.m. came, each one of them received a denarius. Are you kidding me? That's not fair. That's not fair at all. They worked for 1 hour and they received a day's wage. Those other guys worked, I know what's going to happen. The worker is going to pay the other guys more. That's what's going to happen. Read verses 10. When those hired came first, they thought they would receive more. But they also only received a denarius. Injustice. Not fair. Are you kidding me? This is absolutely not fair. Jesus, I don't like this parable. This is not how the kingdom of God should be, Jesus. Not in this world. That is not fair. That is injustice. That's not fair. Verse 11 through 16. When they had received it, they grumbled at the landowner, saying, "These last men have worked only an hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden and the scorching heat of the day." But he answered and said to them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go. But if I wish to give the last man the same as to you, is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own? Or is your eye envious because I am generous? So the last shall be first, and the first shall be last." Does anybody agree with this picture? I don't care if it's in the Bible. I don't care if Jesus taught it. I'm asking you, did the landowner do what is right, or did the landowner do what is wrong? And they all said in one big voice,
Wrong in
wrong.
our eyes.
It's wrong. Thank you, Dennis. It's wrong. It's in the Bible, though, but it's wrong.
In our eyes.
Can you believe that? Jesus, what on earth are you trying to say? It's unthinkable. It's unimaginable. If you worked longer, you should get paid more than other people who only work an hour. When you have a bunch of people who live in a world where God isn't king, this makes perfect sense. But when you live in a world where God is king of your heart, this makes perfect sense. What's the logic behind it? What is the logic behind it? The logic behind it is simple. The last are going to be first, and the first are going to be last. Jesus teaches that the kingdom of God is of equality. Everyone is equal in the kingdom of God.